100,000 years ago, someone dug a hole in a cave on the coast of Morocco, laid a body inside it, and placed a single red ochre-stained bone next to its hand. Then they covered it with earth and walked away. That single act is one of the strangest things any animal has ever done. No other species buries its dead on purpose, with intention, with an object chosen and placed. And we still don't fully understand why they did it. But the answer, once you start digging into it, changes how you think about your own mind, your own fear, and the very first thought that ever scared a human being enough to do something about it. Let's start with the obvious question. Why would anyone bother? A body doesn't need anything. It can't use a tool. It can't wear a bead. To a purely surviving day-to-day creature, burying a corpse costs time, costs energy, costs digging through rock-hard ground with nothing but bone and stone. There's no calorie in it, no protection, no food. So why did it happen at all? The earliest clear case sits in Qafzeh Cave in Israel, roughly 100,000 years old. A young person, deliberately positioned, legs bent, with deer antlers placed in their hands. Not tossed in. Arranged. Someone chose those antlers. Someone bent those legs into that exact position on purpose. Around the same time, at Skhul Cave nearby, another body was found with a boar's jaw resting against its chest. Here's where it gets stranger. None of this was necessary for survival. A 2017 study calculating the energy cost of burial put real numbers on it. Hours of digging with stone tools. Hours that could have gone to hunting, gathering, resting. These early humans paid a real measurable cost in calories and safety to do something that did nothing for their bodies. Whatever was happening, it wasn't practical. It was something else entirely. Now go back even further, and the story gets darker and stranger at the same time. In Spain, there's a cave system called Sima de los Huesos, the pit of bones. At the bottom of a 50-foot vertical shaft, completely inaccessible by daylight, archaeologists found the remains of at least 28 individuals. This site is roughly 350,000 years old, older than our own species. No food remains down there. No tools used for daily life. No reason for anyone to be at the bottom of a pitch-black shaft at all, except one. Somebody carried bodies to the edge, and somebody dropped them in. Deliberately. Possibly the same way, over and over, for generations. One of the few stone tools ever found at the site is a single, beautifully crafted hand axe made of pink quartzite, a material that doesn't occur naturally anywhere near the cave. Someone carried it there. Someone chose to leave it with the dead, the same way that hand in Morocco was given a stained bone. This predates language as we know it. It predates fire use in some regions. It may predate anything we'd recognize as religion or belief, and yet it's already there, an answer to the body, a response to the absence of someone who used to be present. But it isn't only our own species doing this. In 1960, archaeologists excavating Shanidar Cave in Iraq found a Neanderthal skeleton surrounded by unusually high concentrations of ancient pollen, clusters from several different flowering plants, all dating to roughly 60,000 years ago. The original researchers proposed something extraordinary, that Neanderthals had laid flowers on a grave. The idea spread everywhere. It became known as the flower burial, held up as proof that even a species we'd spent a century calling brutish and subhuman grieved, ritualized, mourned. Decades later, other researchers pushed back hard, arguing the pollen could have been dragged in by burrowing rodents or blown in naturally, nothing deliberate about it at all. The debate is still unresolved. But notice what's actually at stake in that argument. Nobody is debating whether Neanderthals buried their dead. They did, repeatedly, across multiple sites. The only question is whether they decorated the grave. We've been arguing for 60 years over whether an extinct species put flowers on a body, because the alternative, that grief and ritual aren't uniquely ours, is somehow harder to accept than the bones themselves. So what were they actually thinking? This is where the evidence gets quieter, and the interpretation gets harder. Anthropologists point to one consistent pattern across burial sites worldwide, separated by tens of thousands of years and entire oceans. The presence of grave goods. Tools, ochre, shells, animal bones, deliberately placed with the body. At Sungir in Russia, 2 children buried around 30,000 years ago were found covered in roughly 10,000 painstakingly carved ivory beads, accompanied by spears made from straightened mammoth tusks longer than the children themselves. Tusks that would have taken specialized skill and weeks of labor to even bend into shape without cracking. Each bead alone is estimated to take nearly an hour to make by hand. That's thousands upon thousands of hours of labor, buried in frozen ground, never to be seen again, never to be useful to anyone living. The only explanation that makes sense of that kind of cost is belief that the dead were going somewhere, and that they would need something, or someone, to send them off properly when they got there. And this is where it gets worse, in the way this channel's history usually does. Not every relationship with the dead was gentle. At Qafzeh Cave in England, the same site where human skulls were carefully shaped into drinking cups, some researchers argue the line between honoring the dead and consuming the dead wasn't always a line at all. Ritual cannibalism and ritual burial may have come from the same impulse, the belief that something essential survives the body, and that consuming or preserving the right part of it could transfer that essence to the living. Different solutions to the exact same terrifying question. What happens to the part of a person that isn't just meat? Because that's really what this all comes back to. At some point, a brain capable of imagining the future also became capable of imagining its own absence from it. And that single capability, the ability to picture a world that continues without you in it, may be one of the most psychologically destabilizing things that ever happened inside a skull. Burial, grave goods, ritual. All of it may be the oldest coping mechanism our species ever built. Not a side effect of intelligence, a direct cost of it. Your brain still runs this exact program, the same part of you that flinches at the thought of your own death, that needs funerals to feel like closure, that puts flowers on a grave that the person buried beneath it will never see. That's not a modern invention. That's a continuation of something that started in a cave in Morocco 100,000 years ago, with a hand and a single stained bone. We like to think belief in something after death came from religion. It didn't. Religion came later, with names and stories and rules, to explain something humans were already doing tens of thousands of years before anyone wrote down a single god's name. The behavior came first. The explanation came after, built to make sense of a fear that was already ancient. So somewhere, right now, someone is doing essentially the same thing that happened in that Moroccan cave. Visiting a grave, leaving flowers, talking to a headstone like it can hear them. It feels personal, modern, individual. It is none of those things. It's one of the oldest behaviors our species has, running quietly underneath all of us, exactly the way it always has. A hand placing something beside another hand that will never close around it again, still hoping somehow that it matters.